if you're a boy or a young man in this family, you learn the wheel of the seasons. You know, if a year is a wheel and the months are spokes, you know, and if you're in agriculture of any kind, then each season brings its own set of tasks and responsibilities, and that's something I've come to appreciate. So, you know, starting in February, you prune apple trees, and in the early spring you fertilize or lime, and then mowing season begins, like now, and the whatever spray regime you may use. Although we've gone to an organic regime on our orchards now, but we used to spray, and then harvest, and then in the winter months it's equipment maintenance and fixing boxes and working on buildings, the seasons sort of grab you and dictate how you're going to spend what spare time you can find when you're not at your regular job. You come home, and it's hard work. It's very difficult to keep a place like this up, especially if you're not here on a full-time basis. So, but if you don't love it, you're gonna be miserable. So you just have to do the best you can, work at it, and just enjoy it for what it is. I've been growing apples since heirlooms were not heirlooms.
Exactly.
You know,
Before they were fashionable.
In 1912, when my great-grandfather started this orchard, the number one apple in America was the Baldwin, which is now considered an heirloom. But back then, it was the most popular apple because, and it is a great apple. If you've never eaten a Baldwin, you've got to try one. And it was popular because you could pick them and put them in a barrel, and they'd stay all winter. They would hold up. They were a good overwintering apple. But now, with controlled atmosphere storage and cold storage, and those kinds of apples aren't grown by commercial growers hardly anymore. The Baldwins only produce every other year.
Oh.
So if you're really in the business to make money with apples, you get away from the heirlooms. They're too difficult to grow. They're not as predictable. People don't talk about landscape amnesia. These, you know, the number 2 variety in the year 1900 was the Rhode Island Greening, which most people have never heard of, and it's a wonderful apple, but hard to grow. First family that was here had a small orchard. Apples were mostly grown in days of old for making cider. Not only that, making hard cider. So I like to tell people that Johnny Appleseed, when he went across the frontier spreading apple seeds for people to have apples, it wasn't for fresh fruit, it was for booze.
And when did you start doing an organic regime, and why?
4 years ago, largely because of my daughter's herbal gardens. It was to have a spray regime in close proximity to her medicinal plants was incompatible. So we decided we'd retool and try to take a different look at how we grew the apples, and there's a strong market now for organic apples, which hadn't in years past was not as well developed. People's consciousness were not really geared towards the organic. But as we all know now, that, you know, there's a strong market for organically raised foodstuffs. So even though the apples don't look nearly as good as they used to, they're a little buggy, a little misshapen, but people don't seem to mind. And one idea we're fostering now is probably taking a good portion of the crop and pressing it into cider, so it'll be an organic cider.
Nice.